They called her names, mocked her slender frame, laughed at her as if being slim was a flaw. She felt unseen, unheard, like a shadow in her own skin. Joy seemed like a stranger until she found it, quietly, beneath a tray of bananas. What started as simple street hawking turned into something powerful. That local market, it became her runway. Meet Illaye, the banana girl. Grab a seat, relax, and journey with us into her beautiful story. The warm sun rose gently over the quiet village of Umunoha, casting golden rays over the rooftops. Birds chirped as morning stirred the land to life. Inside a small mud house painted with fading colors, cries of a newborn girl pierced the silence. Mrs. James, drenched in sweat but glowing with relief and joy, held her baby close. "A girl," the midwife announced. Mr. James, who had been pacing outside, stepped into the room with hopeful eyes. "A girl?" he asked softly, trying to hide his slight disappointment. "Yes, another beautiful girl," the midwife smiled. He forced a smile and reached for the baby. "Her name shall be Illaye. A peaceful gift," he said, kissing her tiny forehead. Though they had hoped for a boy after two girls, the moment they looked into Illaye's bright, curious eyes, their hearts melted. Her presence was tender and sweet, like morning dew on dry leaves. Even as a child, Illaye had a quiet strength in her. She didn't cry unnecessarily, she watched everything with smiles. She brought warmth wherever she went. But as she grew, it became clear that Illaye was different from her sisters, physically. She was slim, very slim. While her sisters, Kamsi and Faye, blossomed with round cheeks and fuller bodies, Illaye stayed small and slender. Her shoulders were sharp, her arms long, and her legs like twin twigs. At first, it was harmless teasing. "Kamsi, look at Illaye. She looks like Broomstick." Faye laughed one afternoon, holding a broom beside her sister for comparison. Their mother, who was cooking in the kitchen, shouted from inside, "Leave my child alone. She's beautiful in her own way." Mr. James would often lift Illaye onto his lap and say, "My little flower, don't mind them. You're perfectly made. One day they'll eat their words." But it didn't stop the hurt. At school, classmates mocked her. "Are you sick?" one girl asked during break time. "You look like wind can blow you away," another added, laughing with others. Illaye tried to pretend it didn't matter, but at night she would cry quietly, hugging her pillow, wondering why she couldn't be like other girls. Her mother, ever the encourager, would give her the biggest portions of food. "Eat, my daughter. Add some flesh. You can't stay like this," she would say, handing her a mountain of rice and stew. Illaye tried. She truly did. But nothing changed. Even if she swallows a whole cow, she can't be plump like us. Kamsi laughed one evening, and Faye joined in, cackling like hyenas. Tears welled up in Illaye's eyes, but she said nothing. She only looked at her father, who gave her a nod of reassurance. The only time Illaye truly felt happy was when she helped her mother sell bananas. Every morning, she would wake before her sisters, pack bunches of ripe bananas into a basin, balance it on her head, and hit the streets barefoot. The sun would rise with her, the birds would sing along with her steps, and strangers would smile when they saw her gentle face. "Banana girl, come." She would jog towards the voices, sell her fruits with a kind smile, and leave. "Good girl," her mother would say proudly, "you're my helper." One day their mother stood in the living room and scolded the older girls. "See Illaye, she's always helping. You two sit here painting your faces from morning to night." "Mummy, fine girl like me can't be hawking, oh," Kamsi replied with a dramatic tone, flipping her hair. "What if a rich man sees me and thinks I'm poor?" "Are you rich?" Mama snapped. "You go about with men and think it's fashion. Don't bring shame to this family. Learn from Illaye. She may not be plump, but she has sense." The sisters hissed. "Men love us the way we are. Unlike Broomstick Illaye, we'll marry rich," Faye mocked. Illaye didn't reply. She only picked up her basin of bananas and walked away quietly. That afternoon, she sat alone under the mango tree in front of their compound. Her eyes watched as men in fine clothes walked into their house, laughing, talking, flirting with her sisters. She bit her lip and sighed. "If only I looked different. Maybe I would be loved too." She stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. But all she saw was a shadow, faint, unclear, like a stranger looking back at her. She didn't feel beautiful, not even close. Her eyes slowly moved over her thin arms, her narrow shoulders, her long legs. "Why am I like this?" she whispered, her voice filled with quiet sadness. She bit her lip, her brows tightening into a frown. "Well, I can't change it," she muttered. "I guess I just have to live with it. For now." Then she looked away from the mirror, slowly turning her back on the image she couldn't love. In the bustling city of Guangzhou, China, somewhere far away, a man named Minhu sat in a glass office overlooking skyscrapers. He was tall, smart, and the creative director of a well-known Chinese fashion company. His assistant entered with a file. "Sir, the Nigeria campaign. You've been selected to go handle the ambassador selection." Minhu groaned. "Why always me? I hate traveling." "Boss, Nigeria is trending now. We need a fresh, natural face, not another plastic model." Reluctantly, Minhu nodded. "Fine, book the flight." He packed his things and boarded a flight to Nigeria. The village of Umunoha buzzed with excitement. News had spread like wildfire. An international fashion company from China was hosting a beauty contest, and the winner would become the face of the brand for Africa. Posters were everywhere, and the village square became a makeshift stage with colorful banners and chairs arranged for guests, judges, and spectators. Inside the James household, Kamsi and Faye were in front of the mirror early that morning. Their laughter rang out as they applied makeup and tried on their best outfits. Illaye, holding her basin of bananas and ready to leave, paused at the door. "What's going on?" she asked softly. Kamsi turned and scoffed. "Don't you know? The Chinese firm is here. The beauty contest is today," Faye Illaye added smugly. "And obviously one of us is going to win." Illaye blinked. "Can I come?" Kamsi laughed out loud. "Oh please, they're looking for models, not broomsticks." Faye joined in, mimicking a catwalk. "Maybe next time, if they need someone to model for hunger relief." Both girls burst into laughter and clapped their hands. She lowered her gaze and quietly walked out, balancing the banana basin on her head. She fought back tears as she walked through the familiar dusty path. Her feet knew the way, but her heart was heavy. At the village square, she saw a large crowd already gathered. The girls were lining up, tall, curvy, flawless in makeup, and in glittering dresses. She stood from afar, eyes scanning the contestants. Her sisters were already among them, flipping their hair and throwing fake smiles at the judges. They all looked so confident, Illaye whispered to herself. As the music played, and each girl took her turn on the runway, Illaye stood by the corner, hugging her bananas. The crowd clapped, cheered, and screamed names. Suddenly, she heard someone say, "Look, there's a girl with bananas." People turned. A few laughed, others stared in confusion. "Hall." Illaye quickly stepped away, feeling awkward. "I shouldn't have come here," she muttered, and turned to leave, walking behind the stage and away from the crowd. She didn't realize that a photographer, standing on the rooftop of a nearby shop, had just taken several shots of her walking away, her slim frame, graceful steps, the sunlight highlighting her smooth skin and banana basin perfectly. She returned home quietly, but the noise didn't leave her ears. That night, her sisters couldn't stop talking. "I walked like a queen," Kamsi boasted. "I turned, and the crowd screamed." Faye said, "That Minhu guy from China kept looking at me." Illaye lay in bed, her pillow wet with silent tears. "If only I had their kind of body, maybe I'd matter too." Bowen sat in his quiet hotel room the next morning, his shoulders slouched and his eyes heavy with sleep. He had spent most of the night tossing and turning, unable to rest. The beauty contest had ended hours ago, but something didn't sit right with him. He had watched dozens of beautiful girls walk the stage, some tall and curvy, others dark and glowing. Their makeup was perfect, their clothes were expensive, and their smiles looked carefully practiced, but none of them had moved him. None of them had felt real. With a tired sigh, he sipped his bitter black coffee and stared blankly out the window. The busy streets of Umunoha were already awake. He could hear distant chatter and the honking of cars. "Maybe we were looking in the wrong place," he thought. Suddenly his phone buzzed loudly on the bedside table. He reached for it slowly, not expecting anything important, but before he could even check it, Someone knocked quickly on his door. "Sir, sir," a voice called out. The door burst open before Bowen could even respond. His assistant David rushed in, eyes wide, holding a phone like it was on fire. "You need to see this, sir," David panted, slightly out of breath. Bowen raised one eyebrow, still holding his coffee cup. "See what? Can it wait?" "No, sir," David said, shaking his head quickly. "It's everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even on Niger blogs. It's going viral. Everyone's talking about her." Bowen blinked. "Who?" David grinned and held out the phone. "They're calling her the Banana Girl." Bowen frowned. "Banana? What?" But as he took the phone and looked at the screen, his eyes slowly widened. His tired face lit up with curiosity. There she was, a young Nigerian girl, walking away from the contest area with a basin of ripe bananas balanced neatly on her head. She wasn't smiling or posing, she wasn't even looking at the camera, but something about the photo pulled him in. She looked calm, almost peaceful. Her skin glowed naturally in the sunlight. Her slim body moved with quiet confidence, and the way her neck held the weight of the bananas so gracefully made her look like a painting from a dream. She wasn't trying to be noticed, Bowen whispered, but she stood out more than all of them. David nodded eagerly. "Exactly, sir. Look at the comments." Bowen scrolled through them, reading one after the other. "She's absolutely stunning, so simple and so different. The bananas on her head look like part of the costume. Genius. Yes, girl doesn't even need makeup. She's just real. I don't know who she is, but she should be the face of the campaign. This is the kind of beauty we want to see. Authentic, African and proud." Bowen kept staring at the image. The girl's back was slightly turned, but her profile showed a calm, thoughtful face. Her clothes were plain. Her skin didn't shine from oil or glitter. But there was something honest about her, something no fancy dress or lipstick could give. "She's not one of the contestants, right?" he asked. "No, sir," David replied. "She wasn't even in the lineup. From what I gathered, she was just passing by, maybe a banana seller from the village. But now the whole internet wants her." Bowen finished for him. He stood up suddenly, more awake than he had been in hours. He placed the coffee cup aside and paced around the room, thinking hard. "We've seen enough fake beauty," he said firmly. "We've seen rehearsed smiles and rented confidence. But this girl, she carries her beauty without even trying." David smiled. "Should I begin the search?" "Not begin. Start right now," Bowen ordered. "Ask around the village. Show them this photo. I want her name, her house, her story, everything." He looked at the image one more time and smiled to himself. "We've found our face, and she doesn't even know it yet." It was still early morning in Umunoha village. The sun had only just begun to stretch its golden fingers across the sky, painting the clouds with soft orange and pink colors. Birds chirped on mango trees. Inside the James family's small compound, the air was peaceful until a loud noise shattered the quiet. "Where is she?" a voice shouted from outside the gate. "Banana Girl, come out. We want to see her." More voices joined in. Some clapped, some chanted her name, some beat small drums, their rhythms rising with excitement. Mr. James, still in his wrapper, rushed out of the house, scratching his head in confusion. "Who are all these people shouting in front of my house this early morning?" His wife, Mama James, tied her scarf hurriedly and followed behind him, her face full of concern. "What is going on? Did something happen?" Kamsi and Faye peeked from the window, annoyed and sleepy. "Who is making noise this early?" Faye grumbled. But before anyone could answer, Illaye stepped out quietly from the house. Her eyes were still heavy with sleep. The moment the crowd saw her, they screamed with excitement. "That's her. That's the Banana Girl. She's even more beautiful in real life. God made this one special. Look at her walk. See her face, just like sunlight." Before Illaye could even ask what was happening, two strong men from the crowd gently lifted her into the air. "Hey, wait, what are you doing?" she shouted in surprise. But the men didn't stop. They carried her high like a queen, slowly moving through the noisy, excited crowd. Women ululated loudly. Drummers beat their talking drums with skill and speed. Children ran around her, dancing and laughing. Even the old women from the neighborhood clapped their hands joyfully, shouting blessings. May your star shine brighter than the moon. So demure, so beautiful, Banana Girl. The James family just stood there, speechless. Mr. James kept blinking, his mouth half open. Mama James placed her 2 hands on her chest and whispered, "God, what is going on?" Then, from the corner of the road, a shiny black Jeep slowly drove into the compound. The car was long and neat, with tinted windows that reflected the morning light. The crowd stepped back as the car stopped. A moment later, the door opened and a tall, handsome man stepped out wearing a dark blue suit and black sunglasses. His shoes shone like mirrors and his perfume filled the air. It was Minhu Bowen, the man from the Chinese company. He removed his sunglasses slowly, clapped his hands, and smiled at Illaye with gentle eyes. "Illaye," he called softly. "You are the one we've been searching for." The crowd went silent. All eyes turned to her. Illaye looked around, confused. "Me?" she asked, pointing to herself. "I don't understand." Bowen nodded kindly and stepped closer. "You don't have to understand everything now," he said warmly. "You just have to keep being yourself. That's what makes you special." Then he handed her a beautiful bouquet of fresh white and yellow flowers. The petals smelled sweet like morning dew. Next, he brought out a golden envelope with her name written in shiny letters across the front. "Illaye James?" Her hands shook slightly as she opened it. Inside the envelope she found a brand new contract with the official stamp of the Chinese company, a plane ticket to United States, where the company's photo shoot would take place, a letter of endorsement that said, "We officially recognize Miss Illaye James as the face of our brand, natural, strong, and proudly African." Illaye blinked several times and looked up at her parents. Her lips trembled. "Mummy, Daddy." Mr. James stepped forward slowly, touched her shoulder, and whispered, "This is your moment, my child. You deserve it." Mama James's eyes were wet with tears. She reached out and hugged her daughter tightly, pressing her head gently. "My baby girl, my banana girl. Look what the Lord has done." Kamsi and Faye just stood there, frozen, their mouths hung open. Faye whispered, "Is this a dream?" Kamsi frowned and muttered, "This can't be happening," but it was happening. From that day on, everything changed for Illaye and family. Months passed like a dream. Illaye was flown to United States, Canada, and then to China. Her face appeared on magazine covers, billboards, and TV commercials. She was called the natural model. Her slim figure became the new beauty standard for the company's campaign. Back home, she built a beautiful mansion for her parents, solid, proud, and warm. Her mother and father now sat side by side, eyes glowing, watching their banana girl on shiny television. And her sisters, the same ones who once laughed and teased, now too ashamed to meet her eyes, they came forward and asked for forgiveness. And Illaye forgave them, not because they deserved it, but because her heart had grown bigger than the pain they caused. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit alone on her balcony, staring at the stars, remembering the laughter, the cruel names. Now, those same legs that were called broomsticks, she used to walk across the most famous runways in the world. And the girl no one wanted, she was admired, celebrated, and seen. A quiet smile touched her lips, and her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "So this is what it feels like," she whispered, "to finally be seen." During an interview on a popular TV show, the host leaned forward and asked gently, "What gave you the confidence to believe in yourself, even when the world mocked you?" Illaye paused for a moment, then smiled. "I didn't always believe," she said honestly. "But I kept going. Selling bananas gave me purpose. My father's and mother's words gave me strength." And one day, she looked up, her voice soft but steady. "Someone saw beauty in what I thought was nothing." If you love this story, please like and subscribe.